Today's video is on the Allegheny Portage Railroad, some of my favorite history in Blair County. The Juniata Canal system would run beyond Harrisburg and run to Hollidaysburg. At Hollidaysburg, the canal boats would be loaded onto rail cars to head up over the Allegheny Mountains. In today's video, I'd like to retrace the steps of the Allegheny Portage Railroad, just show you how incredible the history was that these workers did to build this amazing railroad system. I hope you guys enjoy this video. Please like and subscribe for more videos coming. It would mean a lot to me. Thank you very much. Enjoy the video. Okay, we're on Incline 10 at the Allegheny Portage Railroad. Incline 10 was at the very start of Foot of 10 Road in Duncansville, and this was a railroad that connected off with the Juniata Canal system that came from Harrisburg to Hollidaysburg, and they would take the canal boats off the water, they would put the canal boats on rail cars, and they would start to come up the very difficult journey up the Allegheny Mountains here, and they would use incline planes to pull themselves up the mountain. And this is incline number 10, and this is at the foot of 10 here in Foot of 10. So we will go up there to the top and check that out. Okay, we're just getting ready to get on the 6 to 10 trail, and this will take us up to the Allegheny Portage Railroad Museum. And riding along this rail trail, we'll be able to see where all the inclines were, where they took the canal boats up on the railroad using the inclines. And I just want to show you an interesting piece of history here. If you look over here and you see this large cut here, that's actually another railroad called the New Portage Railroad. And after the Allegheny Portage Railroad was out of service about 1854, they built the New Portage Railroad that came through here. So you'll see that cut, and it would actually continue on this way and follow a lot of the original rail beds. But I'll show you kind of where it goes around the Allegheny Portage Railroad towards the top. Okay, so if you see this large impression in the ground, this was actually the old foundation of Incline 10 steam pump house. There would have been a large foundation in here, and they would have had a building with a steam pump inside, and if you go this way, it would have ran a steam power engine, and that would turn a pulley system, and it would pull hemp rope and then eventually Roebling cable to hook onto the rail cars coming up the incline here. And if we walk over here, you'll see a great shot of Incline 10. And this would be incline number 10. It'd be the last incline going down from Johnstown, but it'd be the first incline coming up from Hollidaysburg. So if the canal boats were coming from Harrisburg to Hollidaysburg and they would get on the Allegheny Portage Railroad, this would be the very first incline they would go up. Now, there would be, a car could come up the one side and another car could go down the same side at the same time. So this rail line was moving cars towards Johnstown and towards Hollidaysburg. And this would be, like I said, the ruins of the steam engine house. And they had 10 of these engine houses along the Allegheny Portage Railroad because there was 10 inclines, and there were 5 on our side of the Alleghenies from Crescent down to Hollidaysburg, and there was another 5 from Crescent to Johnstown. And that's why this trail is called 6 to 10. Looks like some old foundations from the rail tracks here. But whenever they would unhook from the winch system at these inclines, they would get hooked up to a regular locomotive, a small steam locomotive. They would pull the rail cars on the flat spots on the Allegheny Portage Railroad. And there was about 30 to 40 small steam locomotives that would pull the canal boats on all the flat spots along the Allegheny Portage Railroad. And there wasn't many flat spots from Hollidaysburg to Crescent. It was mostly inclines, but right here would have been a flat spot where they would have unhooked and they would take the steam pumps up to the next incline where it got steep again. So you can see, you know, the daffodils there. There was probably some structures here, some buildings during this amazing time. Okay, here's a really nice culvert. An original culvert they probably built in about 1830s when they were building this railroad. The railroad bed's up top, and anytime they would find a river, a creek, or a waterway, they had to direct the water underneath the rail bed naturally, so the railroad wouldn't get washed out. So all along the Allegheny Portage Railroad, there's all sorts of old culverts that really show the craftsmanship of the stonemasons that built these culverts. And you can see this original dry stacked cut stone here. And this, like I said, was probably built around 1830, 1832 when they were building the railroad. And I'm guessing they added this later on. But you'll find all sorts of interesting culverts along the Allegheny Portage Railroad. You can see riding along the 6 to 10 trail, there are some flat spots. This is where the locomotives would pull the canal boats up to the next incline. What's interesting about the 6 to 10 trail, you're mostly riding and walking on the new Portage Railroad, which took over the old Allegheny Portage Railroad later on. The original Allegheny Portage Railroad came right through here. And this is incline number 9. And the steam pump engine house sat up on that ridge over there. So we'll just go down here and take a look at the old rail bed. Here's incline number 9, and it's coming up the hill a pretty good ways. So they would have been pulled up this part of the rail track as well, the whole way down there. And notice it's not that wide of a railroad, but things were a lot different in the 1830s up until the 1850s. When the new railroad came in, they were a lot bigger. All right, let's go check out these ruins of engine house number 9. Okay, here's a sign for engine house number 9. Let's go see what we can find. Here's the site of engine house number 9. They would pull the canal boats up the mountain. And you can see some ruins here of an old foundation of some sort. All right, let's walk over here, see what we can find. A little bit of ruins here behind engine house number 9. And it's hard to imagine that this was the old rail bed here. The old Allegheny Portage Railroad actually ran right through here. And, you know, a lot of trees have grown up since, but this is the original rail bed. That is awesome. So I don't know if that's an old coal mine or just some kind of coal storage, but pretty cool. I'm guessing not sure what that was. Maybe it was an old coal mine. Walking along the original Allegheny Portage Railroad, I always just am amazed with the workers that build this early mode of transportation, and think about how many people came through here and their stories they had along this awesome rail line. All right, we'll turn around and go back on the new Portage Railroad. Okay, right off the trail here, I noticed this big stone structure, and it's mortared natural stone, and I don't know if this was some kind of loading tipple onto the railroad. Maybe there was some kind of industry up here on the hill. I don't know. Does anyone know what this is? If you do, let me know in the comments. I'm just curious. I'm not sure what this could have been. You know, maybe, I don't have no clue. So let me know what you guys think. U.S. Department of the Interior, National Park Service. Well, the National Park Service would know what this is then, because they obviously marked it. But I see a pipe coming out there, and this structure of some sort. I'm not sure what it was. Like I said, it might have been a tipple for some kind of industry that was above the railroad. Not sure. Okay, here's a marker for incline number 8. As you can see, we got off the New Portage Railroad here, and we are going to go down to the original railroad bed from the Allegheny Portage Railroad, and we are going to check out incline number 8. Now that's a pretty culvert right there. Some amazing stonework. I mean, they got all this sandstone on site in these woods, and they cut it. This was an art and a craft from back in the day that stonemasons would cut and chisel and make this amazing rock. It would fit together to make these amazing tunnels and bridges. And these things are still standing for hundreds of years. Pretty awesome. Just look how steep incline 8 is. I mean, the last mile or two of this cross over the Allegheny Mountains, very steep. Okay, so we are at the top of incline 8 here, and we made it up, and that's a nice steep grade coming up the Allegheny Mountains. And right here is the ruins of Engine House 8. And this is probably the nicest area of the, where you can see some of the ruins of the pump house, engine house. And this is what the engine house would look like. They would just, the tracks would be here, one going towards the mountain and one coming down from the mountain. And they would go through this engine. They'd have a steam pump in there pulling the winches up. And, they had boilers to make steam, and really awesome engineering skills at the time. But if you stand back, you'll see the impression, and there's some foundation rock here. Okay, so right here would have been engine house number 8, and the rail cars would basically just go right through here and on the way up to the top of the mountain. So let's go take a look inside here, see what we can find. Okay, you can see a lot of the foundation rocks of Pump House 8 still intact here on this side of the wall and on that side of the wall. So, and they would have had track that would have went across here, and underneath the tracks would have been the boilers and all the equipment to turn the cables. And originally they were using Russian hemp rope, which is really strong braided rope. But after many accidents of the rope breaking, miles and miles of rope would break, and it would send the canal boats down the mountain, and a lot of people would get hurt or injured and killed. And a man by the name of Roebling, well, he invented an iron cable and called it the Roebling cable after his last name, and they would use that on the Allegheny Portage Railroad. Okay, it's the next day here. My battery went dead at engine pump house 8, which is down the hill here. I thought it'd be a good idea to come to the top of the Allegheny Mountains and start from the top and walk down to engine house 8. Yeah, I totally regret that move. That's the trail from the top. And basically the reason they put the trail up here to go around is because the Allegheny Portage Railroad gets cut off by Old 220. So they made this walking trail to go around the road. And yeah, I'm worn out. That was a tough hike. It was about 2.5 miles of just up and down, huge steep banks, but it was very nice if you're feeling up to it. Now, the original Allegheny Portage Railroad came through here, and if we go down, we'll go down to the end here and see what it looks like down here. Okay, above engine house 8. This, if we're coming up the rail bed, this is kind of where the rail bed stops. And when they put in the old Route 22, almost over 100 years ago, this probably right here was just dug out, and the original Allegheny Portage Railroad would continue on that way. But with the excavation putting the highway, it stops here. So with incline 7, it's not on the map. Between 8 and 6, So my theory is obviously engine house 7 sat between here and Skew Arch Bridge. We'll figure that out when we go talk to the park rangers. But I'm going to head back down here now. So the Allegheny Portage Railroad would have came right through here across the Route 22, and it would have came right through here, and it would have went right under the Skew Arch Bridge, and it would head straight up the mountain towards Crescent to the Incline 6 engine house. Let's go take a look at that. Okay, we're at the base of Incline 6, and the last incline up to the top of the summit. This is Incline 6 that goes up to engine house 6. Okay, and this is the Skewed Arch Bridge. The turnpike road was on top, and the wagons would come over the top of the bridge, and the canal boats, rail cars would come right through this bridge. And it's amazing structure here. Just look at the fine craftsmanship. Here we are at the Allegheny Portage Railroad Museum and Visitor Center. This is a federal park, and it's an amazing park to enjoy the history of the Allegheny Portage Railroad. And I highly recommend you guys visiting this park. They have a museum, a movie theater, they have the 6 to 10 trail, they have a picnic area, lots of hiking trails. So please stop up and take advantage of this free park here. Okay, we're at the visitor center walking down to the engine house on Incline 6, and you notice a bunch of sandstone rock here. They actually quarried rock out of this section, and it was for a lot of the sleepers and also just structures along the railroad, such as the foundations. But you can see these cuts in here where they were actually taking out sandstone, and all through here there's places missing a lot of rock where you can tell they just basically took it out, and they would cut it and chisel it to do what they needed to do. Okay, here's Incline 6, and when the canal boats came up this would be the last incline coming up to Crescent. And it's an awesome part because here's a replica of the rail tracks that would go right to the pump house, and that is a restored engine house, and we'll go check that out. That's where the rail cars would go through, and they would use a steam powered system to pull the canal boats up these rail tracks. And like I said, there was one coming down from Johnstown to Hollidaysburg, and one going up from Hollidaysburg to Johnstown. Notice the engine house. This is what they would have looked like back in the 1830s to 1850s. There would have been 10 of these along the Allegheny Portage Railroad. Okay, this is some incredible history. This is a beautiful replica of engine house 6, which you can see the original stone structure at the bottom, and this is all restored. This would show the rail tracks where the canal boats would come in with the hemp rope pull in. There's the pulleys, there's the gears. I mean, whoever designed this back in the 1800s they were very smart people. And there'd be boilers down in there and in there where they would create the steam power, and the steam power would create the power necessary to turn all this mechanical gears and pulleys. And this is what they did back then. It was an engineering marvel, and you just got to really understand that at the time frame this was really some serious work they did. Okay, so if you were coming up from Hollidaysburg, you'd reach the summit, and this isn't Crescent, and this was probably a big relief for the people riding over the Allegheny Portage Railroad, because it meant, hey, we got up and over the Alleghenies. Now we have a little bit of an easier ride to Johnstown and then on our way to Pittsburgh. So it really flattens up on the top here. Okay, we're looking at engine house number 6, and the reason why they call that trail 6 to 10 at foot of 10 is because engine house 6 started here, and it worked its way down to 7, 8, 9, and 10. And 10 was at the foot of the mountain, and this would be the 6 to 10. If you would go this way down to Crescent, Incline 5 would be down there, And from then all the way to Johnstown, there'd be 5 more inclines. 5, 4, 3, 2, and then the 1 would be the very last one before they would take you back down the hill into the canal system. So that's how this operated. Okay, we are at the famous Lemon House, which Samuel Lemon moved to the Alleghenies in 1826. He built a log house not far from here, but he got into the coal mining industry, which he found a coal mine right behind here somewhere. There was a small coal mine that he operated, and he became very profitable. And when he found out that the Allegheny Portage Railroad was coming right through his property, he went ahead and built the Lemon House, and this would serve as a tavern and a hotel for people to stay along coming up to the Allegheny Portage Railroads. Between this and his coal mining business and his lumber business, he was a very wealthy man up here on the top of the Allegheny Mountains. Okay, so I really want to encourage people watching this video to come check out the Allegheny Portage Railroad. Come check out the 6 to 10 trail. It's incredible. And there's a lot to do here at this park. And if you continue walking down this path, it follows the original rail bed down to Crescent to where it stops at the highway. But the park extends for many acres down that way. They have a picnic area, hiking trails. It's just a beautiful place to bring your families. So come check it out. Rather than walking down that entire way, we are going to drive to Mineral Point outside of Johnstown to check out the last section of the Allegheny Portage Railroad. And we'll go check out the Staplebend Tunnel. Okay, we are at the Staplebend Tunnel Park, and this is another nice national park here that was built to preserve the Allegheny Portage Railroad. And here's the original line that came through here, and we will probably take about a 2-mile bike ride to the famous Staplebend Tunnel, which is the first railroad tunnel built in America. And let's just look at this map here, kind of go over what we went through so far. Okay, my last video I talked about the Lewistown Narrows and the Juniata Canal system. And just so you know, the Juniata Canal system started right here in Columbia, okay, and would run through Harrisburg and all the way up until Lewistown, and we showed you the Lewistown Narrows Park. And then from there it would come through Huntington and up to Alexandria, and then through Williamsburg and over to Hollidaysburg at the Canal Basin right here. And then today, the video we're working on today is from Hollidaysburg up the Allegheny Portage Railroad to the Lemon House. And from the Lemon House, we drive down here. We're probably somewhere in about right here. That's where we are. And we have a couple more miles to go till we hit the Staplebend Tunnel at Johnstown here. And from there, it drops down into the canal system and heads towards Pittsburgh. And this would not be the Juniata Canal. This would be another section of the mainline canal. But that just gives you an idea of what we've been doing here. Okay, we're riding the trail back to the Staplebend Tunnel. And from here, from Crescent to Johnstown, there was a lot of miles in between. So there was less inclines needed, and it was more flat. So they used a lot of locomotives to pull the cars between the inclines. But here we are riding to the Staplebend Tunnel, and I'll tell you what, I'm very tired from the last 2 days of this adventure. So it's a fun trip so far. Right here along the trail, I stopped to show you they still have some original sleepers where the rail tracks had on. See, they would drill down 2 holes and spike the tracks to them. And there's a set of here, and there would have been a set over there too for the cars to come in both directions. Very neat. It's said as harsh winters with freeze and thaw what could actually push these sleepers up, and it just required yearly maintenance. You know, so the workers that work these railroads would probably have to adjust some of these stones over time. Each one of these stones, it said it took about a day to get one sleeper ready. That'd be taking a stone, cutting it down to the correct size, and drilling the 2 holes. It said it would take one man about a day to complete one sleeper. And you can see how many there are. And there was about, like I said, I got to check the exact distance, but 30 miles of track. So that's a lot of rock. So they had hundreds of men working together to do this. Here we are at the famous Staplebend Tunnel. This was the very first railroad tunnel ever built in America. That just goes to show how old the Allegheny Portage Railroad was. It's one of the earliest railroads in America. And whenever they were crossing the Allegheny Mountains, they had just lots of different obstacles as far as getting over the mountain. And then they came right to here, and they came to this large mountain. They decided just to go through it. So, you know, it took them years to dig this tunnel, and they did it by hand. So let's go through and check it out. You can see this has been restored for safety. But as we go further in, we can see the original lining. Okay, check that out. All cut stone. Unbelievable. I mean, how do they do this? It's just crazy. I mean, the craftsmanship of these stonemasons were incredible. It took about 2 miles to get here on the bike, and it was a pretty comfortable ride. And they say they want you to walk through here because it's a little dark. So, okay, we're about, I would say, about 30% through the tunnel right now. The tunnel was 901 feet long. And I believe each day the workers that worked here, when they started digging from the outside of this mountain, I think they could only go about a foot, a couple, maybe 2 to 3 foot a day. And there would be workers at that side and then workers at that side. And I believe, like I said, they could only go 2 to 3 feet per day by using picks, shovels, and they would put dynamite in. And like I said, it took a couple of years, I believe, to finish this. Okay, we're coming to the end of the tunnel here. And you'll see the beautiful side of this tunnel when we get out here. Just every piece of cut stone, perfectly laid and mortared. Just unbelievable. Imagine building something like this today. Wow, the impressive Staplebend Tunnel. We'll find out exactly how long this tunnel took to build, but when they finally got through the mountain, they were very excited, and then they came, after they completed the inside of the tunnel, then they had stonemasons do this amazing outside stonework. And I believe the stonework on the outside, and maybe when they wrapped the inside of the tunnel, costed a lot more than actually just getting through the mountain. But it was an impressive feat. Okay, here's the Staplebend Tunnel coming out. It's an amazing piece of craftsmanship. It's wonderful. And if you take a look here, here's the pump house, the engine house that came right outside of this Staplebend Tunnel. Here's kind of what it looked like. You got the Staplebend Tunnel, incline number 1. So this is engine house number 1. Here is kind of a platform where the old engine house used to sit. So the track sort of came straight out through the engine house and right down to Johnstown. This would have been the last incline. You went 4 miles on rail track, and then the rail tracks would have taken you to Johnstown and dropped you into the canal in Johnstown, and you went to Pittsburgh. So amazing history. Thank you very much for coming along. I had a great time on this video. take the time to visit some of these sites, and I'm guarantee you'll have a great time with your families. Looking forward to bringing some more history in the future. Thank you. I do a lot of reading, and here's some local books that I've read to help me out with some of the history on the Allegheny Portage Railroad and the Allegheny Mountains. All wonderful authors. I'd also recommend checking out the Allegheny Portage Railroad. They have lots of great books there. And Scott's Odyssey channel on YouTube did a great video on this Staplebend Tunnel, one of my favorite YouTube channels. And you can look up stuff online to find out more information about the Allegheny Portage Railroad. Thank you very much, and I appreciate you watching.